Hi there, Malcolm here with my 225th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you a review of the film Mickey17. Film, you say? I thought this was a Booktube video. Well, it's a film based on a book. A few years ago I read Mickey7 by Edward Ashton. Hadn't heard of him, didn't know anything about the book. This was gifted to me by a friend. I read it and really enjoyed it. I've done a video for that, so check out the link below. So when I heard they were doing a film based off this book, I thought, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's go check it out. Now obviously I knew they were going to change some stuff because in this book Mickey spends a lot of time reading accounts of other colonies and how they failed, and the colony he's currently in on Niflheim is also failing, and so there is a certain level of increasing tension regarding the failure of the colony, and we're constantly reminded about how other colonies also failed. But I did think that wasn't going to be very cinematic, and that is probably going to be a thing that was going to be dropped from the film. And it was. That didn't surprise me. A little bit disappointed, but I can't see how they could have kept that in the film and keep the film tight and interesting. For those who don't know, Mickey is a expendable. He signed up for a colony ship to go off to the planet Niflheim as the ship's expendable character. Basically, setting up a colony is expensive, everyone is key personnel and not really expendable at all. And so when the reactor starts going critical and you need someone to go in there and shut the door or change the plutonium over or whatever, you need to send someone who's going to definitely die. But you don't want to sacrifice anyone useful. Enter Mickey7, who's running away from his debts, doesn't really know what he's running into, and so is the designated person who dies to save everybody else. But they've saved his consciousness and his body, and so every time he dies they just print out a new Mickey, upload his memories, and off he goes again. And in the book we follow the 7th iteration, and in the film we follow the 17th iteration, because of course we have to kill him a few more times for reasons. And actually the increased number of deaths is kind of irrelevant. It could have easily stayed as 7, but why not 17? Why not 23? I don't know. Anyway, at the beginning of the story he falls out of a crevasse, is left for dead, and is able to make his way back to his bed, only to find Mickey18 is already there. And that's the start of the problems. Now, particularly for the beginning of the film, but a lot of the way through, there is a voiceover work done by Robert Pattinson, who plays Mickey17, as he tells you his thoughts, his feelings about such things. And we also get a montage of the events leading up to him being down this crevasse, and why he got on the ship in the first place. So we have a lot of backstory and his previous 16 lives briefly surmised. But he plays a very likeable character, you really feel for him, and for reasons they have made Mickey18 slightly crazy and violent and a lot less likeable, and so you really feel for Mickey17 as he fights over his girlfriend, his right to exist, his right for food, and to stop Mickey18 going on a murderous spree, particularly after their Commander-in-Chief, a stand-in for Donald Trump, no, not quite, somebody who's certainly cut from the same cloth. And the story very much uses dark humour quite liberally. I mean, the guy is dying after all over and over again, and sometimes in pretty horrible ways. And it's the cavalier attitude of the people around him about his deaths. Particularly the scientists are quite happy to inject a freshly printed Mickey who's just woken up for the first time, as it were, with a deadly toxin that's going to kill him in 10 minutes. And the fact that he really is a sort of third-class citizen in this community, with only a few exceptions. Now, there are a few big changes from the book which I'd like to address. And one is the nature of the local inhabitants, the creepers, who in the book are a lot more vicious, a lot more bitey, where the antagonism between the humans and the creepers is a lot more understandable, whereas in the film it's very much, ugh, they're ugly bugs, they must be evil. Also, the time spent as a multiple, I think it's very much outlawed due to a previous psychopath who had multiple copies of himself. In the film he's a serial killer, whereas in the book it's far worse than that, and that he takes over an entire colony of himself over and over and over again. So I'm not quite sure why they changed that particular aspect, but maybe it's a budgetary thing. It's cheaper to only have a few copies of a man rather than an entire planet of him. But for whatever reason, having Mickey17 and 18 coexisting at the same time is very, very bad news. And it is, but in the book it goes on for a lot longer. You know, they're trying to survive on half rations. I think it really hits home more about would be a really bad idea that they get caught. Whereas in the film, events come around really quickly. Now, of course, with a 2-hour, 17-minute film, you haven't got a huge amount of time to have time passing, but it did feel a little rushed in places because of that. And the other big change was the end. Now, beat for beat, there were certain aspects that were the same, but there was a very significant difference between the book and the film, certainly dealing with an antimatter warhead, which doesn't feature in the film at all. And in the book it sets up the sequel, titled Antimatter Blues. Not as good as the first one, but still quite a lot of fun. But because they didn't do that, then the film, when it finishes, kind of is a wrap. It kind of means there isn't going to be a sequel, there can't be a sequel. Now, not every film needs a sequel, obviously, but I always find it a shame when they build particularly a fantasy or science fiction world as rich and as lived in as Mickey17's is. So, well, this is your only innings you're going to get for this one, bye. That being said, nothing saying we can't have an Alice 26 or Jane 53 set on another colony ship going to another planet and have a totally different adventure unattached to Mickey 7. Hell, you could even have a TV series around that sort of thing. Because we have a sort of a pseudo religious political government now, which means that there are certain attitudes and mandates that are much harder to fight against, as well as the whole ethics about printing a cloned person, and the existential question about if you are cloned and your consciousness is somehow saved and downloaded into that body, is that still you? It has your memories, it has your thoughts, it looks, behaves like you, but is it really you? And in Mickey 7 and 17, when he gets back to find 8 or 18 back at his accommodation, the reality hits home that Mickey's 1 through to where he is now are dead, they're gone. And when his current version dies, that's it. It's not going to suddenly jump into 18, because 18 or 8 is already there. So that's a really interesting aspect it takes on as well. But no, I really enjoyed it. I took my wife and 15-year-old son to go and see it. They have not read the book, but they both really enjoyed it as well. I thought all the actors in it did a really, really good job. And Robert Pattinson being both Mickey 17 and 18, and playing off himself a lot of the time, was really, really well done. And you forget that the actor is playing both roles. So really, really well done there. So definitely worth going to watch and worth getting in a form of physical media of your choice. So have you read Mickey 7? Have you seen Mickey 17? Do either interest you, or does dark humour not really do it? There were some real laugh out loud moments in both the book and the film. So comment below please, but as usual, if you have nothing nice to say then please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe and other YouTubey things if you want, and until next time, see you later.